Hello, this is my reflection on chapter 1 of our book. I'm going to just hit on the things that stuck out to me during the chapter. I'm not aware of any time or word requirements, so if this is not enough or too brief, please just let me know, and my future reflections will be longer. Now, first, the authors explain what communication is and what kind of communication and conflict this book will focus on. Essentially, it will focus on communication that's face to face between people that know each other more often than not, between people who would like to preserve their relationship while resolving the conflict, and also conflict that is complex and difficult to understand. I really liked the inclusion of that the two parties wanted to resolve the conflict while also maintaining the relationship, because I feel like a lot of times today, when conflict is perceived, a lot of people are just wanting to end the conflict and then end the relationship as well, and they're not willing to work through and preserve the relationship. Next, the authors explain that conflict arises more often than not from a perceived difference in goals or competition for a perceived scarce resources. And I think the key here is the difference in perception. When two people or groups perceive things differently, conflict is bound to arise. And if you remember, I'm somebody who on the first day said that I don't experience that much conflict in my life, and several concepts from this first chapter gave me a little bit of insight into why that is, I think. And this is the first one that kind of stuck with me, because my dad has always said to me that perception is reality. I'm not sure whether that's a term he coined or picked it up from someone else. I'm not sure. I've just always remember hearing it from my dad. And when I was very young, I thought it was just mumbo jumbo, like old people talk. I didn't understand it. But I liked it, so I tried to understand it. And so I think from a very young age, I held that in my mind, that perception is reality. And so when experiencing conflict or before conflict arises, I always try to think of what the other person could be thinking and how they could be perceiving my actions. Now, as this book focuses on interpersonal conflict, which is conflict between two or more people, it is important to note where this kind of conflict comes from. And more often than not, this is intrapersonal conflict, which is internal conflict within somebody that is activated by some sort of triggering event, and that becomes active conflict. And sometimes interpersonal conflict may never be resolved, and so it never actually becomes interpersonal conflict, but that can be just as harmful. And when talking about perceived incompatibility of goals and perceived interference, which is when you think somebody is blocking you from your goals, the authors implore readers to take the following mindset in order to avoid unnecessary conflict. You do not know what other people are thinking until you enter into an honest dialogue. You do not know their intentions without dialogue. You can't read minds. Conversation is the best approach. And I think this is kind of something that I've been subconsciously doing doing without having it put into words like that, for a couple of years now. And this also contributes to my lack of conflict on a daily basis. The reason I've implored this kind of way of thinking is actually a song that came out a few years ago, in which the artist says, "If I could let you in my brain and let you roam around my thought waves, you would never have to ask, why do you love me?" And I just really thought that was kind of beautiful. And Also, it kind of stuck with me because I have a long-term girlfriend, and so I heard that and I was like, wow, like I feel like if I could do that with my girlfriend, we would have a lot less conflict. And so that's always something that I've just kind of like held in my mind. Like, yeah, it would be perfect if I could let somebody roam around my thought waves, but I can never do that. So it's always important for me to communicate what's going on in my head because I'm the only one in there. Then the chapter asks why we study conflict and says we study conflict because through the study of conflict, we can discover how to successfully resolve conflicts or avoid them entirely. And this is an important skill because conflict is categorized as a stressor, and too much stress can lead to a multitude of problems brought on by the negative effects of stress. And that has too much stress can have many problems with your mental health that affects not only you, but your relationship with others and how you treat others. After that, the book moves on to describe the different types of conflict, beginning with family conflict. The authors say that family conflict is a big part of children's lives, and how parents deal with conflict vastly impacts not only how their children will deal with conflict later in their life, but also many other aspects, including relational satisfaction. The book touches briefly on love relationships after that, and what stood out to me from that section was how much harder it seems for same sex couples to avoid conflict and breakups than different sex couples. And why that is, the book said it's because same sex couples don't think they have as many options. It's also because they do not get the same support and love from other family members or friends that different sex couples experience. I hope that the changing times will see the next edition of this book say that same-sex couples experience the same support as different sex couples, and also because of the decreased stigma of coming out and increased awareness for LGBTQ plus community and their rights. I hope that there's more LGBTQ people who are confident being out in public, and I hope this leads to that community kind of abandoning that view that their options are limited and that they must stay with whoever they are with. And then the last type of conflict that this chapter focuses on, last type of conflict, as to say, types broken down by different context, is workplace conflict. And what stuck with me from this was the author's mention of conflict between nurses and other medical staff, and that it results in increased patient illnesses and death. And keeping that in mind, I think we get a clearer picture of just what it is at stake when we study conflict, and also the importance of a healthy way to resolve conflict grows ever bigger. Those are the main things that stuck with me from the first chapter. I look forward to getting more into the concepts that were just barely breached in the first chapter as we move longer into the book. And I see that I'm almost at 10 minutes here, so yeah, if it's too short, let me know. If it's too long, also let me know. Or if it would be better as written or something else. I look forward to seeing you in class on Thursday and look forward to hearing your feedback on this.